Now we're going to do we've mentioned, actually, that's a nice segue as far as collaboration with partners. We want to bring some of the partners into the room because CHE is all about bringing folks together, kind of connective tissue, bringing folks who don't often work together into the same room. And so Sharyle and I, welcome you up, Sharyle. My dear friend and colleague Sharyle, who I'd like to rabble-rouse with, are going to Sharyle Patton. So we are going to highlight just a few of the many partners that CHE has worked with over the years.
Well, just to remind everybody to take a look at these incredible photographs on the wall here. They're just magnificent that we're being honored to show. Actually, one of my favorite birds is up there. It's called No Leftist Turn Eye. Most of you know that as a no left turn. But take a look and you see it later. And just on the grounds of being transparent, Michael and I, in fact, are married to each other. And when I first came to Bolinas, I realized I wanted to work at Commonweal because I'd been working on a documentary about the atomic bomb and talking to the scientists that made it, trying to figure out why they did this because they knew how dangerous all the radiation would be to populations around the world. And then I just wanted to live in that place where how these decisions are made to really contaminate the world, who's making those calls. So I realized if I wanted to work at Commonweal, I'd probably have to marry Michael Lerner. I thought about it and I decided no sacrifice was too great. All right, that's all I have. Okay, CHE Core Partners. Well, the EDC Strategies Group, when CHE started, we wanted to target health outcomes and all the things that relate to the incidence and trajectory of disease, but we wanted to have another small group as well that would put forward the idea that we really have to rewrite how we consider the toxicity of chemicals. And so we started the EDC Strategies Groups, which includes other groups in us, which include Jerry Heinberg's HEEDS, of course, the Commonweal Biomonitoring Resource Center. HEAL is this massive NGO network in Europe. And who else do we have up there? Well, Commonweal itself, of course. And so this group meets regularly and puts on webinars, and we talk specifically about EDC chemicals, and we try to attract people who are the decision makers, who work at the UN level, and we engage in the United Nations Stockholm Convention, are going to be engaging in the upcoming plastics treaty as well. We wanted to talk to people who work at universities. We wanted to talk to people who work at CDC and the EPA at the national level. And of course, all the students out there, the people that are really involved are going to be making decisions. And we've been successful at that. We probably attract about 250 people per webinar, and then a number of people that download all the resource materials. So accompany that, and many of you here have been on those webinars and will continue to ask your advice how we should do this, and would you please do a presentation for us. And all those webinars go on our website, and you can archive them. Here we see pictures of all the people that are involved.
He's also mentoring the next gen researchers. That's such a
another person's going to talk about this. That's cool. But it's a good point. So so that's what we've been doing, and just to make this really concrete. We've been publicizing some of the research that's coming out of the Global PFAS Science Panel, and we have somebody here today that's part of that panel, which is Greta Gottlieb, sitting in the back here, who's a member of that. And one of our webinars featured a paper by Ian Cousins that talked about rainwater around the globe, and where it's been tested, the levels of PFAS, which is a chemical you all are familiar with, I'm sure, the levels of PFAS in rainwater is higher than the levels the EPA considers safe in drinking water. And then we, in fact, are creating a globe that's going to be uninhabitable if we don't find a way to turn off the tap. Okay, we really have to do it. Take the handle off the pump. And that's the whole point of this EDC Strategies Group, to move forward, keep that hammer going, that information going, to make sure people know what is going to happen. It is happening now. And here is the science behind it, and the regulators can use it. And as you all know, California joined last week. 15 other states are now suing the manufacturers of PFAS. That's great. Yeah, it's amazing. And I like to think that the webinars that we know California Attorney General has signed up to, along with all the work that's gone to people in this room, have created this change so that we are moving forward step by step.
I do want to acknowledge that HEEDS, one of the collaborations that Che has with HEEDS is the Young EDC Scientist Showcase. So it's another series of webinars. But I wanted to talk for a minute about and read a little quote from Ami Zota, who some of you know. Ami was one of the 20 environmental health pioneers under 40 several years ago that Che recognized. And she has gone on to, was at George Washington University, just moved to Columbia recently and established this amazing organization, Agents of Change, that's one of the partners that we work with, which is basically they have a cohort of young environmental health scientists of color that they support through a 9-month program focusing on science communications. They do podcasts, work with EHS, get a lot of support from environmental health sciences, and also do Che webinars. And so Ami submitted, she wasn't able to be with us today, but she had this to say. She wanted to bring her voice into the room. She says, "The Collaborative on Health and the Environment has been an incredibly important network for me throughout my academic journey. As a postdoctoral fellow at UCSF, it was a great way for me to learn about the latest science in the EDC field." EDCs. As an assistant professor, I was honored to be recognized by Che as a pioneer in the environmental public health under 40, and through that recognition, received opportunities to share my latest research and cutting-edge ideas at the intersection of science, policy, and equity on Che webinars. And to jump down again, just excerpts. As Che turns 20, the organization has shown an ability to nurture community, highlight important and innovative science, as well as provide a space to amplify early career scholars with potential and promise. I look forward to participating in the evolution of Che as it seeks to address the environmental public health problems of the future amidst our changing scientific policy and media landscapes. So we wanted to highlight Agents of Change. And then Sharyle, back to you.
Oh, sure. I'm going to tell you about one of our really important partners, which is Alaska Community Action on Toxics, ACAT, headed up by Pam Miller. And she said in this statement, in the early years of Che, the staff of Alaska Community Action Net on Toxics would eagerly join the monthly teleconferences and huddle together around the conference speakerphone in the early morning docks of Alaska. It's no exaggeration to say that these calls inspired our work and left us feeling that we were part of an international community, members of civil society working together to advance scientific understanding and motivated by a passion to protect public health and the environment with which we are inextricably connected. The teleconferences provided a much-needed remedy to alleviate the isolation we experienced as environmental health and justice researchers and advocates in Alaska. Che continues to provide inspiration and enlightenment that informs our daily work for environmental health and justice and is a vital source for those who are most directly affected by chemical exposures and burdens of disease. May Che continue to encourage our collective action towards primary prevention and transformative change that protects the health of all. So this is from Pam Miller from ACAT. I just want to mention that ACAT was key to raising up the issues of the toxic chemical exposures to PCs by the Yupik peoples in Alaska, and that whole movement to explore where that source was through that U.S. military bases was key to the indigenous peoples of Alaska and Canada engaging in the Stockholm Convention and supporting the work that International POPs Elimination Network did there, one of which was to set up science panels with the incredible guidance of Pete Myers once again to set up science panels so that scientists could talk directly to delegates with a solid science about EDC chemicals. And the indigenous population played a strong role in that because they were deeply affected by PCBs and conducted one of the first biomonitoring studies of the communities in Alaska. And when the results, one of the first biomonitoring studies where participants were actually told their results, confidentially, and the communities of the UP people got together and talked about the results. Many of the people cried, but they cried in gratitude because they're so glad to realize that the lesions they were seeing in their fish and their indigenous food and the rates and cancer, specifically breast cancer, the community had a source, had a cause, and they could take that information, take it to the UN, work with Pete and Mike to set up these scientific panels, and it worked. It worked to the resulting of the Stockholm Convention. So thanks, Pete, once again, for your guidance and help with all of this. He's a hero.
So just to wrap up, that's just highlighting a handful of the many, many partners that Jay works with and has worked with over the years. And I have one more quick quote to share. This is from Maria Valenti, who, again, wish she could be here. And Maria says, I remember attending a meeting decades ago at the Harvard Club in Boston, where Michael Lerner and Dr. Eric Shivian spoke about a planned initiative called the Collaborative on Health and the Environment. I was skeptical and thought, oh no, not another environmental group. Do we need this? Wow, was I wrong. Jay became and still is a rare space for scientists, health professionals, health advocates, educators, and the public to come together in community to share the latest science on environmental influence on the health of all beings. And Maria is now a Commonweal Health and Environmental Literacy Project, so she's under the Commonweal umbrella, and we continue to collaborate. I wanted to thank Sharyle. So as many of you know, Sharyle's amazing work on biomonitoring has really changed the field. And I know that we, when I was at PAN, had a chance to collaborate both in the international policy sphere, but also I'm looking at you, Margaret, with an amazing biodrift project in the Central Valley of California that was really powerful and amazing, that combined biomonitoring and pesticide drift monitoring in a small community of Lindsay. And she also is a rock star. So for those of you who don't know, Sharyle is an amazing singer and guitar player. So all kinds of secrets you can learn about her if you have a glass of wine with her.
Well, and the biggest secret is that Kristin and I once poisoned all the delegates to a UN meeting because we wanted to point out to the delegates that the eggs that most of them were eating were actually full of toxic chemicals, the persistent organic pollutants. So Kristin and I made little tiny egg salad sandwiches, and we passed them out to delegates. And just as they were taking a big bite, we say, and by the way... So anyway, we try to do things like that when we can. So, but the food here is fine. I just want to reassure you. And we're so glad she's here. She's incredible.
All right. So thank you, Sharyle. Yeah.